Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone. Looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Welcome back. I'm here. I'm your host, Kristen, and I'm here with my co-hosts, Amber and Cindy.
Hello.
Hey.
And, of course, welcome back if you have been here before. If this is your first time, welcome to your first visit with us. We are thankful for all of you coming in and
Amen.
Visiting us every Wednesday. And this week, we are discussing grimoires. What is a grimoire? And does that even mean anything to you? Is it something of value to you? Could you use one? What could you put in one? All of that. Like, we are defining something that doesn't have to be defined. If that makes sense.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's something that's personal to you. So here is what, for those who don't know what a grimoire is at all, basically it's a book of spells, or that's like its wider known purpose. Anyone who might dabble in like
Herbology,
crystals, anything in the metaphysical realm, even if you have a book of prayers, I would say that probably would be fit for a grimoire, or a grimoire in a sense.
scent diffusers.
Oh yeah,
oil
if you have
diffusers,
like little recipes for your scent diffusers, or if you have like little rituals that you do for certain things and you might write those in, that would be a place where you would put those in a grimoire. So you may already have one and not realize it. I kind of like to think that cooks who have like their personal go-to recipes all in a binder,
especially
that's their grimoire.
Especially if you don't share them.
Oh yeah, if they're like your sacred secret recipes, that would be your grimoire for a kitchen.
Yes.
So a grimoire, I'm not going to get all like historic on it, like where the like term was coined or anything like that, but just because I don't know, I'm just going to be honest, I don't know.
Honestly, I never even heard that term until I read Wicked. And she was talking about her grimoire, and I was like, what in the world is she talking about?
Grimoire is actually, I believe, Latin or Greek or something, form of another word.
We don't know.
Whatever.
We'll post it on
You guys can go look it up online if you want. Yep. You're grown-ups, hopefully. But
maybe.
Another
Some
term
days.
that's really commonly known in like the Wiccan group is Book of Shadows. Also, I think there's a couple of TV shows in the 90s or so that had like witches, and they talked about their Book of Shadows. So
I don't
really
like that
there.
term. I don't know. There's such a negative connotation.
Right. Well, and I figured we get into that too, and just kind of talk about like the different terms. When I first was intrigued by like paganism and Wiccan practices and stuff like that, I started a Book of Shadows, but I felt like the word shadow was kind of a interesting term, especially for like the Wiccans who believe that their practice is in the light and that they don't do dark things. I felt like shadow was kind of dark. And in talking about shadow work just recently, we were kind of talking, it was like 2 weeks ago, right? We were talking about doing shadow work and on the podcast and the blog.
No, that was like a couple.
Oh man, time flies. Sorry, guys. Well, anyways, we'll link that too.
Several weeks ago.
But we were talking about how we thought shadow work when we first saw like, what is shadow work? We were like, is that like evil witch stuff? So,
well, I just think that people have made the term shadow negative connotations, it's
witch
dark,
negative
shadow.
Right.
You're a witch because you do certain things, but in reality, it's what you make of it. It's not what anybody else makes of it.
Right. And I would say that there's probably a large amount of people who have a grimoire that don't
even realize that that's what, or they don't claim to be a witch. Yeah.
Right.
I had a book for a long time, and it really was just collected things about Scorpio and, and sun signs and things that I thought were curiosities and some herbs, I consider myself a light worker, which means anything that I do, because I have a Christian faith, I believe that everything that I do should be in alignment with my faith, and that I can't do things that are dark, like you would call that. And so, everything I do, I just had a book of things, that I felt like were okay to do. I can have diffuser oil, do aromatherapy and things like that. I did a lot of those things, and they were in my book, but, technically that is a grimoire. Even when I had that book of these are the combinations of scents I use. So
to get back to like what a grimoire is, it's basically where you would stash all of that information that you've collected, learned, practice, whatever. So
your quote unquote spells or whatever, but they're not really spells. But
So some people might.
I don't call mine spells. Yeah.
Right, and some people would, like I said, if they have a list of all of the different essential oils that they like and what they use them for, they might keep that in their grimoire.
Yep, I do.
So I keep a list of all of my crystals that I have and what their meanings are, and also a running list of crystals that I have yet to collect, and then combinations of crystals. Because I carry with me I call it a good vibes bag, but a combination of crystals that I always carry with me that are specifically there to promote good vibes.
Yeah, so you might have, like, I'm going to use the term recipe loosely in that, because you have this combination of materials that you put together to get such and such result. So you might have several pages in whatever format. You might put it in a spiral. It might be in a binder. You might have
spreadsheet.
This fancy. Yes, there are a lot of digital ones. Some people want to get like a fancy leather bound book and put it in there. Bullet journaling is a really big common one now for a grimoire. Just that idea, if you did any of those things or other things in your life, you could, in a sense, make your own grimoire. And I'm curious about what other people, like our listeners, might want to put in their grimoire if they were to create one. And you guys, so obviously, you said your crystals and your
Well, I am like Cindy and Kristen. I am very big on aromatherapy. Like, that wasn't like the first metaphysical thing that I was ever into. Well, it's not
really metaphysical, although the metaphysical...
people treat it that way, I guess. Yeah.
But, I mean, even my physician uses aromatherapy and recommends it. And a lot of psychologists... See, I can't even talk today. A lot of psychologists, therapists, and stuff also use it in their practice because... Well,
it has medicinal, known results.
Effects on your
Well,
on your
they
psyche.
say that your sense of smell is one of your strongest forms of memory.
Yes.
And when you talk about, like, going into someone's house and they have, like, that, like, wax melt going, or they have...
a candle
going, and it's like warm cinnamon biscuit, or I'm trying to think of the food cinnamon roll.
I like to do like a scent of like the week, like a combination of scents per week, and I kind of keep those notes down in my notebook of what scents work and what scents don't, and what scents give me a headache, and everything like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's in mine on that same topic. I use a scent diffuser as well. I bought it from Kristen. She sells Scentsy, in case you need to know.
We'll link her in the blog.
I was so trying not to be like, you walk into someone's house and they have Scentsy,
But right now I have Palo Santo going in my house right now.
I have a lot of fragrance. I have ADHD, and I also sometimes have a little anxiety or a little depression, and I use mine to help with my concentration. So when I am working or doing my planning for the week and things like that,
you have a ritual.
I have a ritual of turning that on to create a certain atmosphere that helps me think better. And so I've been experimenting with different scents, different fragrances that help you concentrate. And so that's the recipes, as I change the recipe and adapt, I'll put one more drop of this and see if that helped a little more or whatever. And I'm just keeping track of it like scientific research. And it really is. It's a lot like a scientist's research notes. And that's one of the first things that I started keeping track of.
Yeah.
And I have a... Kristen was talking about the different kinds of, books or whatever that people use.
And I was like, oh, you're going to help me segue right into that.
I am because, I have a little, disc bound planner, and I used to just put those notes in the back of there, but then I started finding that my notes were getting bigger than my planner part was. So I just made my own. It's a leather bound, disc bound planner, and I took the planner pages out of it, and or I bought just the cover is what it is actually, and I put little dividers, and so I have all kinds of dividers in here. One of my dividers is affirmations, because I'm really big on positive affirmations, and I think we all need to be reminded, that I am enough. I'm doing the best I can, things like that. And so I have pages of that alone. And then I have different ones about different ceremonies, different kinds of ceremonies and celebrations. And I have one that's about the chakras, and some more kind of Eastern beliefs. Yeah. And I love crystals. I've always loved mineralogy. Earth sciences was my favorite science in school. And
I was just talking about that with my students the other day, how they needed to take geology in college.
Love it.
That was one of my favorite classes.
Yeah, that was.
And so I've
astronomy and geology were two of my favorite classes in college.
And astronomy.
I always do that.
Yeah, no.
I'm from Texas, woman.
Astronomy is astrology,
right?
But I have a thing of crystals of different kinds of what kinds of crystals or rocks or minerals, however you want to call them. Which ones can be exposed to water? Which ones will fade in sunlight? Different places where they're found and things like that. I have a whole section about shadow work, which we talked about in that previous episode, which is, kind of doing that self-healing, digging deep in your own psyche to find the things that trigger you or cause you to behave in certain ways. And then I have, as I've mentioned before, I love tarot because it's a great introspective way to look at yourself and have some things to look at or work towards or whatever. And so I have a lot of stuff about that. And then I have herbs and things like that. And, herbal medicine has been around for eons, and people are kind of beginning to rediscover some of those things. And
as we get out of the box food world, people are starting to appreciate that stuff again.
Right.
And we've talked about stuff like that on the podcast before, the holistic approach to migraines podcast.
Yes. And so I keep a lot of those kind of things too. Different kinds of natural plants, particularly in Texas, things that you can find out in nature here that are helpful, or things that you can grow in your yard, like basil and mint and things like that. And there's all kinds of things. And they have a lot of different uses, either by eating them, smelling them. Some of them make topical ointments. And they're great ways, aloe vera. Hello,
Right.
we all know we all use aloe vera.
So many uses
right?
for aloe vera,
and so having a track of those things, and because sometimes it's so much information you can't remember all of it, and that's really what it is for me. That's my scientific notes of what I've experimented with, and and what I've learned. So
yeah, that's so when you're kind of talking about like your personal experience with that, I feel like the Book of Shadows is oftentimes regarded as the one that's like the personal journal of the experience. So why
am I like whenever you say that, I keep picturing the movie Hocus Pocus and then the skin book with the eye on it. Yeah. I keep picturing that. I'm sorry to interrupt. That's
exactly what that is.
That is exactly that was her grimoire. So every time, like when this whole time when we've been talking about it, I've just been picturing the skin book from
and the
Hocus
Evil Dead,
Pocus.
The Necronomicon.
Yes, the Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And
the one in the Care Bears with the
face
on it.
Yes. Oh my God.
There was a Book of Shadows in the
that actually was like a disembodied like witch or something. The kids opened it at the carnival and she was like telling them what to do.
Yes, and the lady's head came out and it was just
God.
Like I know
this
is a kids movie,
right? But this is where
there
mainstream
was a witch
society
thing in the Smurfs too.
Yeah, Gargamel.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and I'm sure he had a book too. So, Merlin had lots of books.
He did. He did.
Yeah. So
but all those are evil people. So
except Merlin.
Yeah,
well,
there could be an argument about Merlin.
I'm sure there's a lot of debate.
Depends on which books you read.
We're just going to have to do a whole podcast on legends.
We should. But yes, so mainstream, media does kind of shed a bad light on the Book of Shadows, hence where it kind of has like a dark terminology to it. But, like I was saying, the Book of Shadows itself, I feel like the grimoire is like this is what this, crystal does, and this is what this color candle can do, and this is what you do whenever you,
it's your class notes. It's your scientific study.
Well, it's like a textbook, and that's the Wikipedia
and
definition.
The Book of Shadows is more of like the journaling of the experience. So I used this candle for this many days and said this affirmation for this purpose.
Oh, and this is what happened.
Yeah, and so like... You could keep them in the same place. I'm not saying that that's the rules, but that's kind of like where I get that vibe from. Is it kind of like
again? I think there are no rules. So.
No, I really think the only one that I remembered seeing like a lot of people say, and I personally don't believe in this because I feel like there's like a sharing the wealth kind of thing, but a lot of people don't like to share the inside of their grimoire, and maybe that's because they. Maybe they're not wanting to share the one with their personal journaling and stuff, but some people regard that as super sacred secret. So,
well, and see, and I don't know. I am not of that belief, because if you look at if you even want to look at more traditional things like a coven, there might be only one Book of Shadows that they all use,
and that's typically what it is. Yeah, with a coven is that they all share the same book, and they put their notes in the same book.
Information in the book. Yeah. So your coven might have its own Book of Shadows,
right?
But I would imagine
that's of course if you choose to practice with a group, you can have your own.
And again, this is all a lot of this stuff. Who knows? Because every group of people choose to do things differently, and our media has influenced our views of those things.
And
heavily.
I was also thinking too that maybe the whole idea of it being super secret sacred is the fact that people were kind of in the broom closet for a really long time.
Absolutely.
For fear of life, I wouldn't just be like leaving it out on the counter for any passerby to see.
Secret. You would not. You would only let somebody you truly trusted and
Well, this is like my first time publicly talking about it.
Well, so, and really,
sort of.
Think about it. Sort of. You would not have shared it with anyone except for someone you were grooming to take your place when you were gone. if you had an apprentice or something,
True.
And your apprentice would have very limited access to it because you would not want your apprentice to steal it or to
damage it,
or to do something with it that they weren't skilled enough or whatever, or
that Mickey Mouse, he did bad things.
Exactly.
Right. He literally did, right?
Yes.
When you started saying that,
Hey guys, so we just had a little technical difficulty and we had this really long pause where we had to stop what we were saying and wait for the technical difficulty to go away. And so we kind of forgot what we were talking about. We
topic a little bit.
We were talking about the media and Mickey Mouse was bad boy. We were talking about different types of personas in the media, how they're portrayed and their grimoires. But just kind of to rein the topic back in, I was kind of talking about what I thought a grimoire was, and I wanted to kind of put how I have mine organized. So on the blog, there'll be, some outlines you'll see from Monday's post, kind of where I've started on mine. I actually had to start again. I was collecting and doing all the research and reading all the books that I was intrigued by. And my best friend and I used to go to the library every weekend, and we would spend all day at the library just looking at the different books that they had and writing down the different things that the color symbolisms and
which is psychology
combinations and stuff like that. Yeah, so we had I had this really awesome note going notebook. Yeah. So I guess I lost it somewhere in the multiple moves that I have. I kind of put it down and was not using my time to work on it, and then it got lost somewhere. And so then I decided I'm going to go back and use some of the notes that I still had. They go all the way back to 2008, and continue building my book of knowledge. And I haven't made it a permanent home right now. It's in a binder so that I can make a page of information, put it on the page. It gets filed into the different tabs where I have them sorted. And then I hopefully someday will have some of the layout and idea of what order some of the pages go in, because I do have a nice leather bound book that I want to kind of almost bullet journal into it, artistically add,
right.
So where I have the page about quartz crystal, it'll probably have its own page, and I might put the properties of quartz crystal, yada yada. So I kind of have some ideas of how I want to break it down. But Amber, you have a book that you had mentioned something about how to write a spell or something like that, because that's something I'm really interested in. I believe in creating your own spell versus going online. And I mean, you could definitely go online and find lots of different things, but I like the idea of crafting your own. And so I was really intrigued when you mentioned a book.
Well, so I guess I look at grimoire, book shows, whatever, a different way than y'all do, but this has always been something that has fascinated with me. Like you said, both of y'all, I do the same thing, take notes over different things and so on and so forth. And I bought a book, and I was trying to look see when it was published. I mean, I have a lot of books, but this is one of
That's an understatement.
Right,
a lot is an understatement. Amber's house is a library, literally.
I have
an English major
author that I really like, a metaphysical author, but he writes a bunch of other things too. He writes a lot of books about writing.
Oh,
but he's also he also writes books about soulmates and stuff like that. So he writes a lot about metaphysical topics as well, and his name is Richard Webster. And he wrote a book that I picked up. It was published in 2001. So I want to say I probably picked it up either around that time, maybe a couple of years later. I know that I've had it like forever, and I have 2 different copies of it because one got like... Remember when the apartment flooded? It was right after you moved out. My very first copy of it, that was probably like 2005, got ruined. Well, I dried it out and everything, so you can still read it, but it got ruined in that flood. And so I have multiple copies of it, ones that I've highlighted in, and so on and so forth. I guess all of my favorite books, I have multiple. Sorry. Oh, I am so sorry. It's called How to Write Your Own Magic. The Hidden Power in Your Words. And I didn't pick it up like for like the whole witchy grimoire aspect. I picked it up because I collect books on writing and metaphysical books. But, you know, it talks a lot about how you can use the magical power of words to make your dreams a reality.
Which is manifesting.
Yeah, so it was manifesting before...
manifesting was a thing.
Yeah, it was manifesting before manifesting was cool, I guess, because it was written in the early 2000s, and I've had this book for, I don't know, 20 years or so.
Yeah.
So I guess I've been manifesting before manifesting was cool. But
okay, hipster.
Right? So... this book really got me into numerology, and it really got me in, and then studying the Enneagram got me in even more into numerology.
Which is actually psychology as well.
Yes,
you know,
yes.
A lot of, and this is the thing, is a lot of this stuff is psychology.
Yeah, it's a lot of these things are considered pseudoscience because there's no like defined numerology.
Well,
you're a born 5, so you have these traits because you can't really measure it.
But the Enneagrams are they're not based on that necessarily. They're based on your personality traits, and you fall into the, you know, kind of like the Myers-Briggs puts you into a certain thing. And those are scientifically...
Yeah, some people don't think they're science.
Well, I know. Well, there are scientists who believe psychology is not a pseudoscience.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
So
That's
true,
what I mean.
so true.
Yeah.
But it, you know, many other people will disagree. So
you're very right. Like when I was kind of looking at the description when I wanted to talk about it, manifesting did come into mind. So like it's basically like giving you tips on how to write your own manifesting, how to write your own magical, you could turn them into spells. Because, I mean, manifesting in a way is kind of like your own personal spell to bring your thoughts and feelings and wants into existence.
A prayer is a spell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so, it's basically like giving you tips on like how to write your own prayers, how to write your own manifesting, even though they don't use the word manifesting because that wasn't a thing back then.
Right.
But, and then also like how you can use numerology in your writing as well.
That sounds like a fascinating book. I may have to check that one out.
Yeah.
It's nowadays what they would probably call it is scripting, which is we've talked about before, I believe. So
and positive affirmations.
So,
but I've definitely like used that in my writing, and you know, like to give it like kind of a magical feel. But I've used it, especially the numerology aspect, in making names for my characters in the stories that I write.
Yes.
And that, I know that sounds a bit extra, like
everybody,
it makes them more real to you though.
Well, yeah. So like, whenever I come up with a character name, then I will do the numerology on that character to see if it's the right fit.
That's cool. Yeah, that's one of the things that I have. So, like, my grimoire is in 5 sections, and I only picked 5 because of the leather-bound book that I got has, like, 5 groupings of paper, stacks of paper sewn together, if you know, like, what I'm talking about, like, inside of a book. they're kind of like
signatures.
folded over.
They're called signatures.
Signatures, yes, thank you. Yes. I was like, I know the
I did not know that's what that was called.
Bookbinding terminology. Yes. Each sewn section is called a signature.
Right, and so I wanted to limit myself to, okay, I only have this much space for this, section. So I have...
You can always do Grimoire 2 whenever you're done with
know,
the first
right?
one,
I totally could. But I want to make sure everything that's in there is like very meaningful, and that I don't have like 50 different pages of notes of the moon phases when I could just put, 5 pages together in a row in my signature of those specific things. Right. So I have one section that's correspondences. So like your color, stones, days of the week.
Correspondences. Yes, that's a good way to call it.
You're definitely going to have to write a blog about this, because I definitely want to.
Word.
Monday's blog. Yep.
Okay.
So, correspondence is a section. Actually, the first section is, and I wasn't sure what word I was going to use, but I think I figured it out this year. one of my goals, my spiritual goals, was to write my spiritual manifesto. So a lot of people have like the Wiccan Read at the beginning of their grimoire or their Book of Shadows, which is like harm ye and harm none or whatever. Sorry, I don't know all the words to the Wiccan Read, but they'll have that like in the beginning. That's kind of like their rules they go by. So I'm like, I want my own rules. I'm kind of like in a rebel in a sense. I want to be creative and make my own experience. So the beginning of that page or that signature, thank you, is going to have my own manifesto, like the purpose of the book, my personal beliefs, which are, infinite. So there's lots of room because it's a whole big signature.
Right.
And then, any like personal, like things like the, celebrations and stuff like that.
I like that you're going to do that. Okay, so I don't really have a grimoire, but I do have my APN that has all of this stuff
grimoire.
In it.
Yeah.
And whenever I start a new APN, I put a manifesto at the beginning of each APN and then the date that I started.
Nice.
And then I do like a ending manifesto at the end of it and the date that I ended it. So that's really interesting.
Okay. Another interesting thing is that one of the one little word projects that we have had this year back in February was it was writing your manifesto, and I thought that was really interesting when you said that, Kristen. So maybe that was what gave you that idea.
No telling. I don't actually remember doing that one little word.
Oh, maybe you skipped that one.
I may have, because I'm really bad about not doing all of
yeah.
But
I might have to try the one little word thing.
You
need to. That's good.
So I have like what you would say would be like the quote unquote spells section. And I feel like that's kind of like a loose term for me because I don't really think of them as like spells. But I mean, if you think about mixing a couple of, essential oils together, that's a potion, right? So it's just another word. But I do have...
it's all about intention.
Yeah. So I do have exactly, and that's why I like that. It is intention. So like when I stir my coffee in the morning, I try to say like a positive affirmation, and I stir it to the right because I feel like
that is a spell.
Right.
When I make
practice of that
recipes, I kind of do like intentions. Like when you and I were talking about over lunch. I know y'all don't know what we're talking about, but Chris and I had a conversation over lunch about how when we make a recipe, we just put a bunch of stuff in it. And we just kind of know that it's going to go together.
Right. And I feel like, if I were going to like meditate on, healing my heart because of something sad that happened to me, I might do a couple of different things to make myself feel better, right?
Right.
Some people,
or to get yourself in the
Some people
mindset.
go and turn the TV on and have some ice cream and have some tissues and
that's their ceremony or
their ritual
or whatever you want to call it.
And
right.
so there's like certain things that I like to do for certain things. And so I'm slowly, adding those type of things into one of the sections. And then one of the other sections is all of the divination type stuff. And I say divination because it's not always like, obviously, like tarot cards, I don't do those to divine my future all the time. Sometimes I just use them for insight, but I have tarot, rune, any information that I pick up, numerology, the chakras I have, and different places. Obviously, that's not part of divination. I consider that like tier 2 of my grimoire. So like you have your correspondence, which is like, hey, this is what all of these herbs can do for you. And then I have like the chakras and those type of things in a tier 2. So I would probably do like my crystal grids, chakra meditation in like that section. And that's where I'm kind of like, I have all these notes and I'm still trying to like organize them because I didn't want to just open the page of my book and start taking notes and then flip to another page and have something totally unrelated next to it and then have like 15 pages of crystals and the moon like all mixed up in between. So
right.
Because I'm super obsessed with things being like organized and having a method.
Right.
So that's why I've got it all in a binder and I'm just using like wide ruled paper to write my notes. And then whenever I come across something new, I can go, oh, here's something that kind of goes with this. So I can just open the binder, stick it in there, and then close the binder, and then all my stuff's
and that's why mine's in the disc bound thing, because
and then
it's easy to just print it off and stick it in.
Exactly, yeah, and just punch a hole and stick it in. And I have quite a few pages where I'm like, oh, I have this giant bag of star anise. Like, it is huge. Like, it's like a 5-pound bag of star anise. It's like, takes up like half the cabinet.
Why do you have a 5-pound bag of star anise?
Because, you know, you send the husband to the store to get star anise and then he comes home with like the giant bag of it, right? And I'm like, you know,
sounds familiar.
I bet there's a lot of cool properties with star anise. And sure enough, you can use it for luck and healing and all kinds of things. So I'm like, cool. So then I'm like, I did a little bit of reading, but I didn't have time to do a lot. It came across my mind. So I got a blank piece of paper, wrote star anise, and then I put luck and healing on there, and then I stuck it in the book. And then one of these days, I will go in and I will do the research on star anise. And then, you know, it'll probably get alphabetized.
Right.
I imagine.
Right.
That's probably where I'll go. I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence. I have seen, instead of having like a separate page for each herb, because if you want that, you can just get a herb almanac or whatever they call them.
Yeah, like I have a crystal almanac.
Books that have just all the herbs and what they do and what you could do with them, right? And what not to ingest and what not to turn into incense because it's a carcinogen and stuff like that. So, I mean, you could go purchase the book. Someone's done all the research. You know, it would be silly to just copy those books page for word, right? So one of the other things I'm kind of on the fence on is I could just do a page that is luck and then write all of the things that are for luck.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good idea, honestly.
And I'm torn. I'm like, should that go in correspondence? Because typically the correspondence would be like Friday and all of the things that are Friday, or full moon, what corresponds with a full moon, or Jupiter, right? Or those kind of things, or red, the color red. Or do I go the other way? So that's where I'm kind of like, dang, I don't know how I want to organize it, or do I just want to double up and do both?
Pivot table.
I was about to say, why don't you just do both?
Yeah,
or
I probably will.
or you have two
cross-referenced.
books.
Yes,
you have two books, and then you set them. You know, because you want to do it in like the big nice leather bound book or whatever, but you have them. Y'all have them in, you know, like notebooks or whatever. Which I kind of have something like that as well. But, like, why don't you do it both ways and then see which way
is the most useful?
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of why I like the idea of the binders.
And it may depend on what you're looking for,
right
too.
now and find,
having it both ways, you know, at one point in time, you may be looking for all the things you could do with star anise. Or on some other occasion, you might be looking for all the things you can do with luck. You know,
right.
So
it's kind of like how I have my lesson plans organized, because I have them organized a few different ways. I have them organized by grade level, and then I have them organized by concept. Like if I want to teach foreshadowing, And then I have the many different ways that I can teach that. And then I also have them organized by genre or, category, so to speak.
That makes sense.
Kind of like a... And that way when I go and search, if I'm like, and then I, of course, have all these millions of subcategories. You don't even want to know my brain and how I've organized my lesson plans. And I have them in physical copies and digital copies just in case the apocalypse happens and I still need to teach school. Because that's like how my mind works.
Y2K, but much later.
If my computer... Okay. Small story on the lesson plan. I walked in to school the other day and my teacher computer didn't work. So of course I'm like, let's pull out the physical copies.
Oh,
so
yeah. I'm a paper person too. So that's, I could easily keep all this stuff that we're calling a grimoire
digitally online. Yeah.
I could.
You know
or
what?
just look it up or whatever. But I like having the paper. And when I am thinking about something that I saw, an article I read or a picture or a recipe, I don't go look online. I can flip through that book so much faster than I could flip through files on my computer.
And I think that's what happened with my old grimoire. I think I was like, you know what? I don't really want to just have this laying around where other people can see it. I'd like it all on my computer. And because this was when, people started having little websites where they would post, all of a sudden, people
you can
are
do
posting
both.
spells and
who
stuff
says
online.
You can't do both?
Yeah, and so then I did have a lot of links and stuff where I would find I really like this website because it shows all of the, Roman and Egyptian and the Greek deities and
well, just
what their
print out
correspondence
your
was.
things off of the website. Yeah. Honestly, you could have and that's a really cool concept of which is something that I might try to do. You can have a digital grimoire and a physical grimoire.
But I think a lot of people think that just because, well, I can look that up on the internet anytime I want to, so why would I keep a paper copy?
Yeah. For me, I actually enjoy the studiousness, if that's what I'm trying to say.
Taking physical notes?
Yes. I love taking the book and going, ooh, that's a good point, and writing it down in my own words.
Physically writing out your notes is proven to assist you in memorizing the things.
And that's how I do it. Yeah, that's bright. That's exactly what I do. I can't learn it unless I physically write it.
I like to write notes as well.
Y'all tell me stuff or whatever, and I'm distracted and I'm not writing it down. I'm not going to remember it.
Yeah. Right. Well, and I think also, too, I'm really excited about actually taking the final product and going page by page and artistically adding the notes that I created.
Well, it's in a way that it becomes a work of art for you.
It's a labor of love. That is exactly
to do
what
that.
It is. Yes.
Just like keeping my bullet journal. There's no reason I should have a money tracker in my bullet journal, except I enjoy the physical task of creating these little charts and writing things out in the
right, and that's what
on a dot grid
for the herbs. I kind of have this idea where I want to draw a picture of the herb in the bottom corner, and then have a neat little border,
right?
A simple border, not maybe even if it's just a liner on the page, and having it have its own stylized. That's one of the things that
and
I'm
a pretty font for the title, and
yeah. So that's kind of and I want to do it all in pen ink.
Yeah.
And I'm also well, do I want to color in it, with colored pencils, or do I want to just leave it black and white? So those are a lot of things that I've been thinking about, because it is once you start adding it to that book, it's whoop, there it is. That's the end. So I'm still kind of on the fence about what I want to put in it, and how stylized I want to make it, or if I want it to be completely functional. I will share a link of one that's a bullet journal one. I don't think she updates her website anymore. It's pretty old. But I really liked her functionality of it. It's just literally bullet points, and it's luck. And then she has literally, like I was saying, like she'll have a page of luck, and then it'll have like blah 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 blah, just little dots, and it's just notes. Yeah. It's not no frills or anything like that, but I really like that idea too of how she just goes right to the source of information that you need.
Right. There's another way you could do it too, and this is something I started doing with my bullet journal actually. As a lot of bullet journals have a key in the front.
Uh-huh.
And I found this works for me, like if I have a topic in my bullet journal, because I just the next page, the next page, the next page. Well, I can't write a table of contents for everything that's in there because there's not enough room. So
that's my biggest fear is I'm not going to have enough room for the table of contents.
So I just put things in there. And so that what I wind up having is a key. And so everything that is on a theme, like you could do luck. Mm-hmm. So you could write luck in your key, and then after it just list every single page where luck is one of the things that comes up themes, on one of the themes. So, or the color red, everything that lists the color red. And that way, if you or someone else who is studying your book can look at it, and if they're looking for something, it's really like an index like you would have at the back of the book, but it's really at the front of the book.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the way hers is outlined. Is she has like she'll have like a wash for good luck to mop, right? Mm-hmm. And then she'll have one of the ingredients is moon water, and then right next to moon water she has page 7, and then when you flip to page 7, it's the instructions on how to make moon water.
Right.
And then, when you go back to her wash, she also has like, say positive affirmation. So it's a wash, mop, positive affirmation, and moon water. And then you go to the page that says where the positive affirmations are.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom. She's got them all listed out. So then it's not like this scrolled out looking, tricked out page with like this little simple wash where she's got all this frou-frou drawing and stuff with it. It's like what people think like a spell book looks like, right? That's not what hers is. It's literally just like, here's this. And then you go over to moon water and it's like when to do it, how long, what to use, the supplies needed, blah, blah, blah. So it's just very like structured. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll look forward to looking at that
marry the two of very structured but also artistic at the same time.
Yeah, I like the idea of the artistic part of it. But, I like to draw. I do that in my bullet journal too. So
yeah. Well, did any of you guys have any other things that you wanted to bring up, or questions or answers, or No?
Not that I could think of. Yeah. Okay. I think I covered everything that I could think of. So
Well, I look forward to anybody, any of our listeners or readers of our blogs. If you also check out the blogs, definitely check those out. Amber and Cindy will be posting this week too. They may or may not.
I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Yeah.
Well, y'all know I'll probably at least mention the book that I mentioned here on the podcast.
And I will link that on Heard It on the podcast as well.
Yes. So those, any of the things that we talk about.
It should be up already. So, and then, my blog will come out tomorrow. So but I don't know what I'm going to write. I'm going to go home and write that up, and there is no telling where it will go. So,
all right. Well, I do want to thank our listeners for sticking with us all this time. What do you think about this podcast? Do you want more like this or less like this, or
did we just scare you off?
I know. Did we just get a little too woo-woo for you today? Would love to know what your opinions are, so definitely let us know. And we do want to thank Red Door Studios and Creative Audio Tech for the gear and our music. And what are we talking about next week?
next week we are talking about gardening.
Yay. Yeah.
Gardening.
More herbs. No.
More herbs.
Yeah,
yes.
more herbs.
I don't know how much I'm going to talk. I don't know. We made these lists of topics, and I have no idea what I was thinking about when I suggested it. So it could just go anywhere.
Right, because I don't garden, but would love maybe to get started.
Well, and I haven't gardened in a long time, so we'll have to.
We'll be talking about how we don't garden, y'all.
Yeah. So tune in to hear us talk about not gardening.
Oh boy.
So we'll look forward to that. I know it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it will.
But we got lots of interesting ones coming up here in the next few weeks, so definitely check us out every Wednesday. And again, thank you, listeners, for your listenership.
Yeah, we're glad you're here.
Yes, we are.
And join us in the conversation.
Yes, on MMC Chat on Facebook.
You can get group. To it through our Modern Musings Facebook page. So yes. Also linked on our website
at modernmusings.net.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
Oh, I knew she was doing that.
I know. She was looking at me. She's like, just get it over with.
Bye.